Experience in Your Life, Book 1, Karma. Now, this book, I actually also have an overview. So I'm going to read the overview or the preface as well as the first chapter. Overview. What karma is and what it is not. The widest known definition of karma is what goes around comes around, or what you do and say will come back to you, good or bad. This is actually only one of the 12 laws of karma, the Great Law. As you sow, so shall you reap. People generally use it in reference to someone acting in a really awful or really wonderful way. We let go of some anger toward mean people, knowing that their karma will catch up to them. Or we root for those who have always seemed to be doing many nice things for others. However, karma is not a reward and punishment system. Karma has a basis in understanding. If person A does something good for person B, they will not suddenly win the lottery. They will, however, be given or already had a situation where they are able to take on the perspective of that person they did the good thing for. Person B's karma is also affected, and they will be given a situation where they can choose to take on the role that person A had before. Whether they choose to do something good or pay it forward or not is entirely up to them, but it will affect both their karma and the person they choose to do good for or not. In this way, karma is a completely connected series of events between ever-growing numbers of people. If you wanted to start a business when you were 25 and someone lent you money to do so, this would be an example of an event that may not catch up to you until years later. It may be that your business took off and you were very successful. Then at the age of 55, someone approached you with their business idea, asking for money to help make it happen. This is your turn to have the perspective of the person who helped you 30 years before. Until that point, you may never have known or even thought about what their thoughts were when you asked years earlier. At this point, should you choose to lend the money, you instantly set the course for them to become you in several years' time. Should you choose not to help them, they will remember years later that you chose not to, and when they are approached, they may then choose to do as you did or to do as the other person before you did. So from the outside, if a person is expecting to see any kind of punishment in this case, they may be disappointed. By not paying it forward, though, person B has not changed anything for person C. Person C, years later, when in that situation, may be even more inclined to help person D with their business venture because they know how much of a struggle they endured without help. Or they may take on an egotistic attitude that they built themselves up by their own bootstraps, so why should they help anyone else? This is not only in business deals, but in all sorts of relationships. Cycles of parents and children go through this in both positive and negative ways. What a child learns from their parents, they believe 100% that this is how things are. They may grow up believing things that are just not true, and then unknowingly pass those things down to their own children. If this is a bad cycle, such as alcoholism or abuse, the adults always have the choice to break the cycle when it comes to themselves and their own children. Breaking a negative cycle will not just affect those children, but the next generations to come. What you do today can affect people hundreds of years from now, whether or not they even know your name or that you ever existed. We are much more powerful than most of us realize, and our choices can affect hundreds, if not thousands of people. Have you ever seen a generational photo where one set of grandparents have all around them their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren? If they had 4 children, and each of those had 3 children, and each of those children had 2 children, there are now 24 people who are affected by the choices they made and the things they taught to their children. Plus, their spouses, cousins, friends, co-workers, acquaintances, and neighbors who are affected, although not as much. We can see how, over hundreds of years of family lineages, there's an ever-increasing number of people who pass down teachings just like heirlooms to the next generations. This is the start of awareness. Once an adult begins to think about beliefs they have and examine what effects they have on themselves and others, they can begin to correct beliefs and actions that give negative results. Oftentimes, parents will be a little shocked to hear themselves say things to their children that they used to hear when they were children. This is awareness of karma, and it is in these moments that people can reevaluate if those words they are passing on to the next generation are true and good or not. Good karma increases connection between people and increases the collective good. Bad karma isolates people and results in a more self-centered collective. Those who are Christians have no doubt heard, "Do unto others as you would have done to you." This is also the great law of karma, just worded differently. While this statement is generally used to encourage people to be good to others, the other meanings of it are not often realized. It means to also treat yourself as well as you treat other people. Don't treat yourself worse than you treat anyone else. Don't allow anyone to treat you worse than you would treat anyone else. Receive from others as you would like others to receive from you. When you give and do all the time, but never accept when others try to give or do for you, you're depriving yourself of good things and depriving others of being able to feel the great way you do when you give. Receiving good with gratitude is not selfish at all, when in balance with giving with an open heart. Not receiving good can also cause resentment. For example, if you don't have much money, but loan money to someone to pay their rent, and then they do not pay you back, but go out and buy a new sports car, chances are you'll resent them for that. But it has nothing to do with them. To them, you're a very kind and giving person, and they would be shocked to hear any negative comment come from you and even ask why you loaned money to them when you didn't have enough for yourself. Then, what was thought to be good turns out to be a negative experience for both of you. This is doing unto yourself less than what you do for others. Eventually, you'll wonder why you do so much but have nothing to show for it, when the truth is you've done that to yourself. You wouldn't wish that on any person you care about, so do not treat yourself so poorly. Keeping the flow of giving and receiving is essential to building good karma, both for yourself and for all those you come into contact with, and all those they in turn contact. Let's move on to the 12 laws of karma. These laws have been formed and passed down over thousands of years and are thought to be of Hindu origin. If you are of one particular religion and are hesitant to read further, there's nothing to fear. Each of the religions makes hundreds of mentions to these laws of karma, even if they do not separate them into any set of laws or call them by that name. You may be reminded of certain passages from religious scriptures when reading. The laws of karma are discussed in many religious and spiritual texts, including the Bible, the Quran, and Hindu and Buddhist writings. These passages are not copying Hindu texts, they are just other ways to communicate the universal laws to all people. The ancient Hindus did not make them up either. They were just the earliest known people to have documented them. Chapter 1. The 12 Laws of Karma. Law 1. The Great Law. The Great Law of Karma is one that all the others basically boil down to. If you know no others but this one, it can guide you to a better life. You're building good karma. The others are situations or circumstances which may interfere with this law in its interpretation. If the other laws are not known or are misunderstood, people may believe they're acting toward building good karma, but in fact they're not. The Great Law states, "As you sow, so shall you reap." You have complete control over all your actions and absolutely no control over many of the consequences. Eventually, however, all your good actions will lead to good consequences. This may not always be apparent at first, but if you trust in the law, be patient, look for opportunities, Stay as positive as you can, do your best, and allow for time to pass and things to unfold. You will see it clearly in action. For example, let's say there's a farmer and he's got a giant parcel of land. He works the land every day, planting seeds, watering, fertilizing, and of course, waiting. The crops look fantastic. The day before the harvest comes in, a tornado flies through town and wipes them all out. His first reaction may be that he did all that work for nothing. He may think that life is unfair or that this whole karma thing must be broken. This is because his expectation of that particular circumstance was that he would be rewarded with a bountiful crop for all of his hard work. The important thing for him to do here is to get out of that angry victim state of mind as soon as possible. The crops were totally destroyed, but insurance paid the farmer 80% of what his crop would have been worth at market value that day. Immediately, he saved an awful lot of time harvesting and transporting the crops to sell. Now he's probably a little disappointed he's only received 80%. He may feel he earned 100%, and this is unfair. But fast forward 1 week, when he would have been at the mill and all his crops had they not been destroyed. Little did he know that the day before, another country reported an enormous output of the same crop, and the market value suddenly dropped to 50% of what it was just 1 week earlier. You see, in this scenario, the tornado ended up getting him an extra 30% from insurance than what he would have received in sale. The other farmers in the other country still made lots of money from their crops as they were so plentiful. People still had more than enough to eat, and the insurance companies still got their premiums from all the farmers, so the payout to the farmer with the tornado damage did not hurt them at all. In your life too, know that karma does always come through. You may not be able to see it today. You may not be able to realize it even in a few months or maybe in several years. Keep doing your best and thinking positively. Only act out of love. Treat others well and only accept good treatment in return. Know that your good is on its way, eventually. If something doesn't seem good at all, do not let it bring you down or convince you to do bad instead. Your good may not come in the form at the time or from the person you expected, but it will always come. One day, you may even be able to see why something that appeared terrible happened after you did everything right. In hindsight, you will see that it sent you down a different path than the one you expected to be on, and that because you stayed positive and believed in the law, your life turned out better than you could have ever imagined. Sometimes the only thing in your control is the way you react to something. There was a story in the paper about a man in Orlando who had been fired from a job 5 years prior. He went to his former office with a handgun and shot several people. No one was critically injured, but he ended up going to jail for the rest of his life. He got stuck on that day of being fired and blamed everything wrong in his life on that event. He decided to act out in an awful way, and his karma immediately caught up with him. His freedom is gone for the rest of his days. Now take another example of a man who was fired, Walt Disney. He was fired from his job at the Kansas City Star newspaper. They said he was not creative enough. He decided to pursue his dream of a theme park. He was turned down for loans by just about every bank he walked into, but eventually found one to invest, and Disneyland was born. Disney would have never had the time to do this if he was still at a job at the Kansas City Star. He went on to be successful beyond even his own wildest dreams. Later, Disney bought ABC. ABC owned many other companies, including the Kansas City Star. Neither of these men were victims or lucky. Both men made their choices day after day, and years later reaped what they had sown. If on the day of being fired, you'd have told either of them where they would be in a few years, neither would have probably believed you. Make certain of the direction of your thoughts and actions. They can either be destructive or constructive. Both will eventually lead to a destination, worlds apart from each other. Always stay in the constructive direction, and you will constantly build good karma. One day, it will all be worthwhile, even if only that you'll never have to regret being awful to anyone at any time in your whole life. Regret is the heaviest emotion at the end. You only come face to face with it when it's too late to do much about it. You'll be so glad you chose to be honest and good to all people. That is a promise. Again, it's Happiness in Your Life, Book 1, Karma. This is the updated July 2021 edition, which is available in paperback, ebook, downloadable PDF ebook, audiobook, and hardcover. And I'll have the links in the description. Thank you so much for being here.